Hi everyone, this is Alex Price from the Cambridge Foundation Year. Today I'm going to do a short video just introducing you to something called the Foundation Year Supplementary Application Questionnaire. We call it FYSAQ for short, and that's basically an additional application form that you fill in following your UCAS application. There's loads more information available on our website, including a full written guide to this. But today I'm going to show you what the form actually looks like, because I'm aware for some people that can be quite reassuring. And I'll take you through the process of how you would fill it in and submit the form. So after your UCAS application, you would get an email from the University of Cambridge. So this is what that email would look like. You can see it's got my name there, Dear Alex Price, and the email is about my application to the Cambridge Foundation Year following my UCAS application. This email sets out that I must complete the supplementary application questionnaire for the foundation year by the deadline. And in this email, you can also see that it shows me that I have a deadline here of the 13th of December. So the deadline that you see depends on exactly when you submit your UCAS application. It also provides a link to a full guide there, so you can click there and get more information about exactly what is included. I will say before you do the survey, I'd really recommend that you take a bit of time looking at what's required, because you may need to collate some documents to have available. And there's also some sections that you might actually like to write out in advance so that you can just copy and paste them in. So if I want to take the survey, I click on the link, or I will just bring over a browser window here. So when I've clicked on the link, this is the form that I see. The link that I click is actually unique and personalized to me. So nobody else will see this exact version of the form. They will have a different link. And what that means is, as I fill this in, if I want to go away and come back to it, or I want to go away, come back and then submit, I can do that and it will save all my information. However, an important thing to note with that is you mustn't share your link with anyone else. Because if you, for example, give it to your friend or someone else, they could fill in incorrect information on your form and submit it in your name. So it's really important that you keep that link private. So this is the first page of the form. You can see at the top here, we've got a data protection statement. And then we've also got various fields here that are personal information. We use this bit to basically link this form back to your UCAS application and make sure that we've got everything. You'll see here that some of the fields have little red asterisks beside them. That basically means that you have to fill them in. And as you'll see, if I scroll down here and I try to click to go forward, I can't do that because I haven't filled in these questions. So if you want to move forward through the form without kind of putting in your final information, you will have to put in kind of just dashes or spaces or something, and then go back and change that. So I'm going to fill this form in with some mock information. I won't go through every possible question, because as you'll see, the way the form works is as you give some information, we show you the follow-up questions that are relevant to you. So what each person sees depends on their choices. But what I'm going to do today is I'm deliberately going to choose choices that will allow me to show you the main types of questions that you would encounter. So the different kind of ways that things will look, so that when you see those questions, you will see that they won't be that different from what you're seeing today. So I'm going to kick off here just by filling in some of my personal information. I'm going to put in my name, which is Alex Price. And these are the names that should be on your official documents. Then it asks for your UCAS personal ID. So this is basically a 10-digit number. So for the purposes of today, I'm just going to put in that. Obviously, your UCAS ID will be personal to you. And then in here, I'm going to put in my email address. I'm just going to use one of my work addresses. And for my date of birth, you just put in month, day, and year. So I'm just going to put in any time for now. And then this question, this is basically about our interviews. So we have a sort of week window when we would be doing interviews for the foundation year, and you basically have to indicate whether you will be available or not. So if I say I will be available for interview, I can continue. If I say that I have limited availability, so for example, maybe I have a hospital appointment or something really vital that I can't miss, if I click that, then I just have another little box there to explain why I'm not available for interview. For the purposes of this, I'm going to say I am available for interview, and then I'm going to continue. The next section looks at your education. So this is about the schools that you are attending or have recently attended. It's for most people. So if you've taken your GCSEs at a UK school, it asks you to enter its name and postcode. If you didn't take GCSEs at a UK school, you can leave this blank. For today, I'm going to put in the name of my school and a postcode here. So it then asks you put in a month and year when you leave school or college. So again, that's pretty simple. It's just a drop-down menu. Pick up, say, June 2019. This question asks you to fill in a little bit of information about the subjects that you're taking and the class sizes and the topics. So the main reason we use this is to get an idea of kind of the environment that you're being taught in. But also, if you are invited for interview, it can help us to consider what kinds of topics we could talk about at interview based on things that we know that you've studied in the past. So for this one, I could put in, for example, English, Lit, A-level, class size 21, studying. And then I'll do the same for the other qualifications I'm doing. So you can put in Scottish Highers, BTECs, access to HE diplomas, whatever qualifications that you've been doing. This question then asks if there's any difficulties with the teaching of my subjects. For example, maybe if your teacher's been off for a long time or something like that. For this, I'm going to say no. But again, if I had said yes, I would just see a little box asking me to provide a little bit more information. This next section asks me to express my preference college. If you have a preference, you can use this drop-down box to choose the college that you wish to attend. If you don't have a preference, you can select open or no preference, which I'm going to select here. It's worth saying here, if you choose one of the female-only colleges, Newnham or Murray Edwards, or one of the mature colleges, Wolfson and St Edmunds, so that's for over 21 students only. If you pick them, you'll get a follow-up question just to confirm that you've chosen the right one and that you know the kind of limitations on admission to those colleges in particular. Next, we move on to the eligibility section. So this is the section that's probably most personalised to your environment because it's answering questions specifically about you. So as you no doubt know by now, you need to meet one or more criteria from two or more categories, except if you're care experienced where you're automatically eligible. So I'm going to fill this in with some dummy information here, just to show you the kinds of questions that you'll see. So for the first question, are you care experienced? If I was to select yes, you'll see that I get some follow-up questions for more information and some evidence. But I'm going to say for the purposes of this example, I'm not care experienced. And then I'm going to move on. The next question shows me all of the different factors in category 1, individual characteristics. So if I didn't meet anything in category 1, I would select I do not meet any category in any criteria in category 1, and then it would skip me on to category 2. But for the purposes of this, I am going to say that I am a young carer. So I'm going to select I've been a young carer while in education. And then I'm going to scroll down and select the next button. So here you can see that this is a follow-up question based on the fact that I've said that I was a young carer while in education. So here I'm going to provide a little bit of more information about my caring responsibilities here. So I could say, for example, that I look after my mother. You don't need to give specific detail on health conditions, but things that are helpful for us to know is, for example, maybe how long you've been doing that, or perhaps maybe whether there's been sort of periods where you've done particular particularly focus on that. So for this one, I've said I've been doing it since year 9, and I look after my 2 younger siblings regularly. You can add more detail if you wish. For this, you actually have an option of whether you want to upload evidence or not. And the main reason that we have that is because we know that lots of young carers at your council or your school might not even know. If you do want to upload evidence, you click yes. And then a little box arrives here for you to upload that evidence. But for this question, for the purposes of today, I'm going to say no. Now we move on to category 2. I could say I do not meet any, but for the purposes of today, I'm going to say that I'm currently eligible for free school meals. For this one, it asks me to upload evidence. What I've actually got is a letter from my school, and I'm going to just drag and drop it into the grey box here. I can see that it's uploaded, and that's all I need to do on that, and I just click the next arrow and move on. For category 3, again, we have all of the criteria that we have listed on our website, and I just have to select the one that applies to me. So in some of these you may have more than one, so you can click all of them and answer all of the questions if you wish. But for this one, I'm just going to click that the school or college I attend has below average progression to higher education. So for this question, you can see it looks a little bit different to some of the questions we've seen before. So this one asks for some school name, postcode, something called URN, which is explained in this help text down here as being your school college unique reference number. If you know it, you can provide it, and it also tells you where you could find it if you wanted to. It's helpful to us if you put it in, but if you don't have it, it's not a problem. And that means that I can fill it in this for up to 2 schools. So if I've attended more than 2 schools, I just give the most recent 2. For this one, I'm going to just put in the 1 school that I attend in this example. I don't know my unique reference number, so I'm just going to leave that blank. And then I'm going to say that I attended this school from 2017 to 2021. So I'm going to leave the school 2 blank, and then I'm going to continue. The next question asks if I intend to use an extra form called the extenuating circumstances form. You can read more information here about exactly what that is and whether you think that you'll need to submit it. For the purposes of this example, I'm going to say that I don't intend to use it, but even if I clicked I intend to use it, there's no kind of follow-up questions at this point because it's basically just an indication to us that we should look out for that form from you. And then finally, we move on to a section called additional questions. So this is supplementary to your personal statement, and we ask some questions about what interests you in the foundation year, and you get 300 words to write on that. We ask you about what you hope to achieve, and some other questions relating specifically to the programme. So this is because we know that if you're applying to more than just the Cambridge Foundation year, your personal statement will probably be very focused on one subject. There may be specific things relating to the foundation year that you'd like to tell us, but it's really helpful for us to receive this because it means that we can kind of learn a bit more about you. And we also do use this in our shortlisting process. So when we decide who comes to interview, we're looking closely at what you write here because it helps us to understand more about you than just what we get from the UCAS personal statement. So you can see that we have some boxes here. These are kind of like free-form essay boxes. You can make them bigger or smaller on your screen if you wish. And they also have a handy word counter in the corner here. So as you type in things, that will go down like that. So for the purposes of this example, I'm just going to put some dummy text in here. So for this one, I've typed in 280 words. This is just lorem ipsum. If you've ever done web development, you'll know this is just often used as a dummy text example. For this question on what I hope to achieve by participating, I'm going to do the same. And you can see underneath each of the questions, there's also a little bit of guidance that might help you to design your answers. What I'm doing here and just copying and pasting this in, I would recommend that you do this because it gives you time to think about these questions outside of the form rather than just kind of doing it on the fly. But you're welcome to approach this however you wish. Same again for 6.3. And for 6.4. The final question is there anything else you'd like us to know? This is a kind of free section. You can write anything here that you wish, but you also don't have to write anything else if you think that everything that you want to say is covered elsewhere in your application. And at this point, then we can click this arrow to get into the final section, which is submission. I will say that section 7, you have not submitted your form yet, so you must do something else from this page. So you have to scroll down to the bottom of the page and click the forward arrow to submit your response. If you don't do that, it will not be recorded, and all of this has been for nothing, so please do that. I'd also recommend that you can click here to download a PDF of your responses so far, and that might be helpful to keep maybe around if you're called for interview and you want to just remind yourself what you wrote, especially in that kind of last section, section 6, where you've talked about why you want to do the course. And as you scroll down here, you can see all the information that we submitted. So there's my name, my UCAS ID, my date of birth, all the information that I gave about the subjects that I was doing. Obviously, you would have filled in probably more of these boxes than I have. There's also my college preference, which was open. There's my answer to each of these questions and all the extra information that I provided. There's the document that I uploaded. And then there's getting into that final section, my essay question answers to, which I can again view in full. So now I'm at the bottom. I can see that everything looks fine. It's as I expected. And I can submit the form just by clicking the forward arrow one last time. So you can see now I've got an acknowledgement. Thank you for completing the form. You'll also receive an email just confirming your submission. So if you think you've submitted the form and you haven't had that email, I would strongly recommend that you go back and just check that you've definitely done that final step. I will say that as you go through the form, there are lots of other things that you can do that I haven't really covered today. So we've used mainly the forward arrow, but you can use the back arrow and go back through the form as you see fit. And for example, if you're interrupted and you want to close the window and return to the form, just use the link in that email again, and all the information you've put in so far will have been saved automatically. It'll just pick up exactly where you were. So that's an introduction to the form. We do have more information available on our website, so please check that out for more help if you need it. And if you have any questions, just drop us an email and we'll be happy to help if we can.